So hello friends. So in this video we will be talking further on moving about the second part of our Staph aureus, and we have already talked about the morphologies and some disease caused by the Staph aureus, some pathogenesis. So if you haven't watched that video, please watch that video before watching this video, and let us today talk about some more pathogenesis. Okay, so we have a live session with joining with me some students. Let me share the screen. So yeah, let us see the screen. Okay, first thing I want to tell you that in the past video, we forgot some pathogenesis. We will be continuing some pathogenesis today. Okay, so that peeling of the skin, which we said in the exfoliation was happening. There is a sign in dermatology. There is a sign in dermatology. That sign is known as Nikolsky's sign. That sign is known as Nikolsky's sign. Nikolsky's sign. That sign is called Nikolsky sign. Okay. So the sign which you see in the exfoliation, we said in the past video that we have an exfoliating toxin, isn't it? We have an exfoliating toxin. Okay. I want to make something under some headings so that we can know, have an idea while we are describing some infections. So we will be writing some infections which a Staphylococcus is doing. More infections, which part, which where. So I have given some broad headings for them. So let us write some pathogenesis. What infections a Staph aureus can do. If I talk about first the skin, in the skin, it can cause in the skin or in the soft tissue. It can cause folliculitis. Folliculitis. So once, for example, someone abruptly pulls the hair from his skin, the hair follicle, and that part gets inflamed and infection. The Staph aureus invades there and it causes folliculitis. Okay. Second infection which it can cause is furuncle. Can we see the peeling of skin from the baby? Can we see? What should I call this if Staph aureus is causing this? What should I call this? Yes, please. Beautiful answer. It is skin Staphylococcus scarlet skin syndrome. Staphylococcus scarlet skin syndrome. Okay, this is Staphylococcus scarlet skin syndrome. What should I call this? This. If it is in adults, toxic epidermal necrolysis. 10. This was 10. I have taught you in the previous video. Okay, so this should be, can we see the peeling of the skin here? Yeah. Can we see the epidermis? See how the skin is getting scalded. It is a syndrome actually. It is a syndrome this cute baby, this cute angel is having. And if you see the adult, you are seeing the toxic epidermal necrolysis caused by this toxin. Okay. Can you see multiple, this big? So if you have a localized one abscess, one infection, we say it is furuncle. But if we have many collections of furuncles, that becomes carbuncle. How I remember is furuncle is an uncle. Furuncle is an uncle. He takes or see. This is a car. This is a car. In the car, furuncle brings he takes with him every child, every son, daughter, little kids. So we say carbuncle is a, multiple furuncles make carbuncles. You can remember like this. Okay. Have you seen sometimes when you are, you have friction, you have more friction at the back of your neck and you see some carbuncle coming out, a furuncle, sorry. You first see a furuncle or a folliculitis, isn't it? So that infection is caused by Staph aureus. How will you understand? Okay. So this, can you see this leg? This is the leg. I think it is the left lower limb. So can you see this cutaneous infection? This is what is known as cellulitis. This cellulitis is caused by your Staph aureus. Okay. So which infections can it cause in the skin? Folliculitis, furuncle, carbuncle, cellulitis, impetigo, mastitis, any surgical site infection also. Please write SSRI. SSRI means surgical site infection, a wound infection. And it can also cause heat adenitis, heat adenitis, heat adenitis suppurativa, heat adenitis suppurativa. Okay. Let us go to the other system, that is the musculoskeletal. What infections can it cause in the musculoskeletal? This was about the skin. Let us go into the musculoskeletal infection. Musculoskeletal infections. It causes osteomyelitis. I always say in my orthopedics lecture, always, Staph aureus is orthopedics, orthopedics is Staph aureus. Staph aureus is orthopedics, orthopedics is Staph aureus. This is how I remember. Staph aureus, major cause of all these skeletal infections. So osteomyelitis is the infection of the bone, mostly caused by Staph aureus, and depends upon the, then we categorize them under if a person is immunosuppressant, if a person is an IV drug abuser, in that time it is salmonella. So osteomyelitis is actually caused by this Staph aureus. Okay. Sometimes what they, in the past, the exam trend has been that they have been asking questions, which is the most common cause of this? So you have to remember, which is the most common agent of this condition? So for example, if they ask you, what is the most common cause of skin infection? Staph aureus. What is the most common cause of topical pyomycetes? It is Staph aureus. Or what else I can remember? They say, what is the most common cause of osteomyelitis? Okay, by the way, if osteomyelitis is caused, what is the most common site? Anyone? It is the knee joint. It is the knee site where you see the septic arthritis. Septic arthritis is also caused by Staph aureus. Okay. Okay. There is a post-operative parotitis. Post-operative, that I will be telling you under some headings. Okay. Let me make it under some headings. So osteomyelitis, pyomyositis, and psoas abscess. Psoas, you have major psoas muscles in your back. Psoas major, psoas minor, isn't it? So this psoas, if abscess happens in the psoas muscle, we say psoas abscess. Psoas abscess. Psoas abscess is also caused by Staph aureus infection. Septic arthritis is caused by Staph aureus, and most common site is knee. Respiratory tract infections. It's not Right to Information Act. It is respiratory tract infections. So respiratory tract infections. So what is the respiratory tract infection it can cause? It can cause, people who are in the intensive care units on ventilator. So there is a pneumonia that is called as ventilator associated pneumonia. Or if you see a nosocomial pneumonia, if you see a nosocomial means hospital acquired. We say nosocomial, a word is for hospital. Okay. So if you see a nosocomial pneumonia, it is caused by Staph aureus. Or if you see ventilator associated pneumonia, ventilator associated pneumonia, it is caused by Staph aureus. Or if there is a septic pulmonary embolism, septic pulmonary embolism, or septic pulmonary emboli, you can write. Okay. Okay. Now, if you see, if someone was having a viral infection, next respiratory tract infection, I want to say, if someone was having a respiratory tract, if someone was having a viral pneumonia, viral infection, okay, what happens is, if some patient is coming with a pneumonia that is coming after the viral infection, we say post-viral pneumonia. So a post-viral pneumonia is caused by, so after the viral infection, if I have a pneumonia, is the most common cause will be, for example, if I had an influenza. So if I have a pneumonia, it is Staph aureus or empyema pus. Okay. These are all the respiratory tract infections. Now, if this bacteria is coming in the blood, if I talk about the bacteremia, if this bacteria is coming in the blood, bacteremia, okay. So if bacteremia is happening, what are the other complications this bacteremia can do? It can lead to sepsis. Sepsis, it can lead to septic shock. Septic shock is an intense state of hypoperfusion, not hypoperfusion state. Vasodilatation is seen, okay. And if you see, when once it is coming into the blood circulation, which places can it go? It can become a metastatic foci, isn't it? It can form metastatic foci of infection. There will be multiple focus of infections in the kidney, in the bone, in the lungs, in the joints. You can see a metastatic foci of infection. So that is the causative agent of this. It can cause this. I want to tell you one major concept which we are lagging behind in our entrance examinations is they always ask about the endocarditis. Endocarditis is basically, since I have first year people, endocarditis. Since I have first year people in my group, so I want to tell for them, you have 3 layers of the heart. You have endocardium, you have myocardium, and you have pericardium, isn't it? These are the layers of your heart. And if you see, the endocardium is the innermost layer, and it is also curving your heart valves. So what is happening that if you have an endocarditis, if someone is having a native valve, I have a natural valve in my body, isn't it? I have a tricuspid valve and a mitral valve, right-sided valves and left-sided valves. If I have a native valve endocarditis, what is the most common agent of native valve endocarditis? Staph aureus. Remember, so most common cause of native valve endocarditis, I don't know why I love cardiology. So most common cause of native valve endocarditis is Staph aureus. Okay. Now, if I have undergone a surgery for my heart valve, now I have replaced my heart valve. And I have now put a new valve in my heart, no artificial valve I have put. Okay. I had, for example, a rheumatic fever infection, and then I was operated for my, for example, the mitral valve. So what did I do? They put a new valve for the, they substituted it with a new valve, that is a prosthetic valve. So if you see less than 12, so if you did a surgery today and less than 12 months, if you see a prosthetic valve endocarditis, less than 12 months, you will be, the most common cause of infection would not be Staph aureus. That is the wrong answer. It would be Staph epidermidis. Are we able to understand? Now, if we have, this is known as early, what will be this condition called? Early prosthetic valve endocarditis. What is early prosthetic valve endocarditis? If and prosthetic valve endocarditis is happening in less than 12 months, we say it is Staph epidermidis, isn't it? And if we have Staph epidermidis, but if we have a late prosthetic valve endocarditis that is greater than 12 months, we say it is still not caused by Staph aureus, it is Strep viridans. So late prosthetic valve endocarditis is caused by Strep viridans. Lead streptococcal infection to the endocarditis is prosthetic valve is Strep viridans. So greater than 12 months is Strep viridans. But if they ask you what is the overall most common cause of prosthetic valve endocarditis, in 3 ways they can ask the question. This is a part of pathology, this is a part of medicine, this is a part of cardiology, this is a part of microbiology. They can ask this question out of 5 subjects, but they will ask you what is the most common overall. Now, if they take an exam question and they tell you what is the overall most common cause of prosthetic valve endocarditis, then it is directly take the Staphylococcus epidermidis. So most common overall infection will be Staph epidermidis. Remember? So Staph epidermidis. But if they are mentioning you a time period, then you have to go according to that. But now another question will be asked. I want to put this in a great detail here. I want to finish it right now. I don't want to keep a place for this. There should not be any loophole in this concept. Now, if they ask you, there is a patient, they give you a case, and they ask you, there is a patient who was an IV drug abuser. He was taking drugs. What is the most common cause of prosthetic valve endocarditis, or what is the most common cause of endocarditis in this patient? Because he's a drug abuse. He is an IV drug user. So what will be the most common cause of endocarditis in IV drug user is if he has a right-sided endocarditis, right-sided means you have two sides, isn't it? This is the right heart, this is the left heart, isn't it? We are dividing the heart when we are reading the physiology into right side heart and left heart, isn't it? Right side is contributed by right atrium and right ventricle, and left sided by left atrium and left ventricle. So we say right-sided endocarditis. If the IV drug abuser is presenting with right-sided endocarditis, we always say the most common cause is Staph aureus. Right-sided Staph aureus. Left-sided, don't tick Staph aureus in your entrance. Both can cause. Staph aureus can also cause, and Enterococcus can also cause. But Enterococcus is most common. Mostly, more it can cause more than Staph aureus. Both are correct, but if they ask you specific, choose the best answer. If they ask you choose the best answer, choose Enterococcus. Choose Enterococcus. Now, if they ask you what is the overall cause of endocarditis, this is for IV drug abusers. Please remember, they will tell you a patient, he has been a history of drug. He used to be in a peer group, in the friend group, and he used to take drugs. What is the most common cause of this? So if they ask you what is the overall cause of endocarditis, please mention Staph aureus. Please mention Staph aureus. Please mention Staph aureus. Second question which will be coming in your exam is what is the most common cause of subacute endocarditis? Subacute endocarditis. Subacute endocarditis. That is strep viridans. Strep viridans. Strep viridans. Please remember these points. So I want to conclude. I want to give a brief review of this. If they ask you what is the most common cause of prosthetic valve endocarditis, if a patient is presenting in an early prosthetic valve endocarditis less than 12 months, please take Staphylococcus epidermidis. If they are telling you patient presented to us after the prosthetic valve surgery, he presented to us after 12 months, that is the late prosthetic valve endocarditis, most common cause will be Streptococci viridans, isn't it? Streptococcus viridans. But if they ask you what is the most common overall cause of prosthetic valve endocarditis, Staph epidermidis. If they ask you what is the most common cause of endocarditis in IV drug users overall, directly take Staph aureus. If they ask you what is the most common cause of endocarditis in the IV drug users, if right-sided region involvement, Staphylococcus aureus. Left-sided region involvement, Enterococcus greater than Staph aureus. What is the most common cause of subacute endocarditis? Staph viridans. Are we able to understand? This is the pattern, the standard of questions we will be tackling, and I have given everything in this video. Okay, so there is I didn't keep a loophole for this. I have kept everything in this. Okay, so let us start with let us write some infections. So endocarditis we have finished. So if they tell you that a patient was given a Foley's catheter, he was having a Foley's catheter in his genitourinary tract. Okay. For example, the cause of that infection will always also be what? So device related infections, they are also caused by Staph aureus. Okay. Or even they tell you about the prosthetic joints. We do plasties, isn't it? We do plasties. We put artificial joints. Okay. So it's talking about those artificial devices. Okay. Okay. Are we able to understand? Okay. Okay. So remember, if we have pyomyositis, what is pyomyositis? Pyomyositis means I have skeletal muscle infection. Skeletal muscle infection is pyomyositis. And pyomyositis, if they tell you, please look at me. If they tell you that the patient is living in the tropical region or the patient is an HIV infected patient, what would be the causative agent? What will be the causative agent? Most common will be Staph aureus. Most common will be Staph aureus. Most common will be Staph aureus. If patient living in tropics or patient HIV infected. Okay. But if they ask you patient is having acute bacterial myositis, patient is having acute bacterial myositis, patient is having acute bacterial myositis, that is not actually most commonly caused by Staph aureus. That is caused by group A streptococcus. Group A streptococcus. Okay. So remember these points. So this is the from the exam point of view. Okay. Second, they will tell you pneumatocoel. I forgot to tell you in the respiratory part. In the pneumatocoel, what is pneumatocoel? You see some thin-walled cavities. Thin-walled cavities, okay, in the lungs. Thin-walled cavities in lungs. If that is written, then you should write what is the most common cause of pneumatocoel in neonates. It is Staph aureus. Remember, it is Staph aureus. In the neonates, if they are presenting with pneumatocoel, the thin-walled cavities in the lung, you should write Staph aureus. You should write Staph aureus. Are we able to understand? Okay. I hope there is no problem. Yeah. So we have last time we have talked also about some, we have said that there is lab diagnosis and we also treated some infections. So right now I'll be giving a broad summary of the lab diagnosis and treatment. Okay. So we said we can do if we have to diagnose the Staph aureus, whether it is a Staph aureus infection, what methods we can do? We can do a direct microscopy, direct smear microscopy. We can do a direct smear microscopy. What you will see? You will see pus cells with gram-positive clusters. Remember, Staph is a cluster. So I will be able to see them in the microscope. If I say about the agar, the culture, if I say about the culture, so if I put them in the nutrient agar, what will I be able to appreciate? I will be able to appreciate the golden yellow colonies. Golden yellow colonies. Okay. But in the nutrient agar, you will be seeing them. The component for this golden yellow colonies is beta carotene. It is beta carotene. If you talk about the blood agar, now I take them on the blood agar. On the blood agar, I will be appreciating some narrow zone of beta hemolysis, some narrow zone of beta hemolysis. Okay. If I take a selective agar, what are the selective agars for me? I have mannitol, salt agar. What else? Salt, milk, agar. What else? Ludlam's medium. So these also I can use. Okay, in the mannitol salt agar, we said we depends on our lactose fermentation, pink coloration, isn't it? You can also do, here you did direct smear microscopy. You can also do what? Culture smear microscopy. Culture smear microscopy. What you can appreciate here? Gram-positive cocci in clusters. Okay, gram-positive in clusters. That is staphylococci. If we talk about the biochemical identification, what about the biochemical identification? You will be able to appreciate catalyst positive or negative. Cat positive. These are cat positive. What else? We said in the previous lecture, you know the difference between the staph and micrococci, isn't it? Isn't it? Okay. So that we have said in the previous video, I hope so. Okay. So what else can you use? You can use typing methods. Okay. So they will ask you what is the most common method for typing of Staph aureus. It is phage typing. Remember, phage typing is the most common method of finding the Staph aureus. Okay, Staph aureus. And we said coagulase and slide coagulase test. We said coagulase and slide coagulase test, isn't it? Okay. So let us talk about the treatment. Let us talk about the treatment. So what is the treatment of Staph aureus? We are actually coming to the end. Treatment of Staph aureus infections. To the treatment of Staph aureus infections. Let us write like this. Now tell me, if you have right now, you have an infection, the patient is having, bacteremia, septicemia, you want to give him an abrupt dosage. You want to right now treat him. It is an emergency. Okay. So what I will be doing, I will be giving a parenteral therapy. Parenteral therapy. Parenteral means I am not using the oral route now. I am using an IV line, an IM or something like that. Okay. So parenteral therapy I will be only giving a parenteral therapy if I have a serious infection. Otherwise oral is good, isn't it? So if a patient is sensitive to penicillin, I will give penicillin G. So my drug of choice will become penicillin G. If patient is sensitive to methicillin, if this organism is sensitive to, not patient, if this organism is sensitive to methicillin, because I will be already knowing from the sensitivity tests. So I will be giving nafcillin. Or oxacillin. Okay. Now patient is coming with MRSA, methicillin resistant Staph aureus. Drug of choice will be dash. We have learned it. Please. Who can tell me what will be the drug of choice? That's a beautiful answer, Sharia. It's vancomycin. So how much? What is the dosage? Dosage you don't remember, isn't it? So it's, I think, 15 to 20 mg per kg BD. It is 15 to 20 mg per kg BD. Okay. Is it okay? Okay. So if you don't know that it is MRSA, now you are telling me, sir, I don't know whether he is MRSA or not. So what to give at that time? So you will be giving an empirical therapy. You don't know whether it is MRSA or not. So you have to give an empirical therapy so that you can cover all the things in it. So you will be straight away giving in the empirical therapy vancomycin in the empirical therapy. And what is empirical? Means I don't know whether it is MRSA or not. I'm actually taking in my mind that, yeah, let us cover everything. So I will be giving vancomycin. And it's your choice whether you will give it with aminoglycosides or not. You can give it aminoglycosides or you cannot give it with aminoglycoside. You can give it individually, single vancomycin. So with or without aminoglycosides. Okay. So they will say you, when will you give vancomycin? You should say, first your answer should be, if I have a high risk of MRSA condition. For example, if a patient is already having a cardiac implant, directly give vancomycin because it is a high risk condition, isn't it? So what about this? This was about parenteral therapy you will be giving for these conditions. For which infections you will give oral therapy? You will give oral therapy for skin and soft tissue infections. Soft tissue infections. So in that, if a patient is sensitive to methicillin, what I will be giving? I will be giving dicloxacillin, or I can give cephalexin. Cephalexin is a cephalosporin, isn't it? Cephalexin. Okay. But if it is an MRSA, still the infection is showing me an MRSA, directly go for clindamycin. Okay. What else you can give? Alternate, if you don't have clindamycin, you can give cotrimazole, moxazole, or you can give doxycycline. Let me first write, it's very much neat. Doxycycline. I can give doxycycline. What else? Linzolid. This is the treatment you will be giving to the patient. Okay. So we have a question that what is the difference between a community acquired MRSA and what is the difference between hospital associated MRSA? Okay. We have MRSA. We want to talk something about this MRSA. We are ending the topic. So this MRSA, what is the resistance caused by which gene is actually MAC-R gene, MAC-R gene. So this gene is basically, what is the, how is it coded? It is a chromosomally coded gene, chromosomally coded. Okay. What does it do is it alters the PBPs on the bacteria, PBPs, penicillin binding sites. You know your cell, the cell membrane of Staph aureus. It contained what? PBP. But you know what will it change to now? Normally you had PPB. It will change it to PBP2A. It will change it to PBP2A, because as a doctor you were actually going to kill this, but now due to this MAC-A gene that has changed the PBP to PBP2A, you have now mutated the cell protein. So what will happen is your drug will not be effective. So this PBP2A is having less affinity for penicillins, less affinity for your beta-lactams, less affinity for beta-lactams, whatever antibiotics you are giving. So remember, this PBP2A, which is having MRSA is having, this will be resistant to all beta-lactam antibiotics. You have to remember this. This is resistant to all beta-lactam antibiotics. That's why in the above treatment, we had said that for the MRSA, we are giving vancomycin. We did not write penicillin or something like that, because this is the reason. PBP is already changed. What will you treat? There is no structure like that. You will cross-link, break the cross-links. They have changed the cross-link structures. There is also one strain in the MRSA, that is Borsa strain. Borsa strain. This Borsa strain is known as borderline oxacillin resistant Staph aureus. Borderline oxacillin resistant Staph aureus. This is a Borsa strain. But what is special about this Borsa strain? It is this MRSA was MAC-A, produced by MAC-A. This is non-MAC-A. This is non-MAC-A. Okay, this is a non-MAC-A mediated. It is a lower resistance. That means it has low resistance. It has low resistance. That's why we say it is in the border. Okay, are we able to understand? So it is said that they can only produce, they are not having that. The resistance is due to, if resistance is there, the oxacillin, he is saying oxacillin, it is due to more production of beta lactamase. It is not talking about the PBP. It is talking about the beta lactamase. Okay. Okay. So what is difference? There are two strains. One is a community acquired MRSA, community acquired MRSA, that is known as CAMRSA, and we should know the difference between the two. Another one is hospital acquired MRSA, that is HAMRSA. Okay, remember we have to write some differences to understand. This is due to the gene, which gene? MAC-A gene. Which subtype? 4, 5, 7, not 7, 6, sorry. And this is due to MAC-A, but which subtype? This is due to MAC-A gene, but which subtype? Hospital acquired 1, 2, 3. Okay. Which is more virulent? Which is more virulent? This is more virulent. This is more virulent. Okay. It can express those toxins. Do we know PV toxin, Valentine toxin? Yeah, it can produce that. Okay. Their virulence is low. The virulence is low, but they are multi-drug resistant. Hospital acquired is multi-drug resistant. Resistance to multiple drugs. What can this cause? Which infections can CMRSA cause? The community acquired, it can cause invasive soft and skin tissue infections. Invasive soft tissue and skin infections. Invasive means it can penetrate. For example, we have one infection that is necrotizing fasciitis. Necrotizing fasciitis. We have a facial necrosis infection, the fascias. Okay. What can this gene, which infection can this HAMRSA cause? They can cause perioperative. Once we are doing an operation, and we see a perioperative wound infection, perioperative wound infection in the hospital. You know, patients have wound infections in the hospital. The most common will be hospital acquired MRSA. Sometimes you see some, you know, a health worker comes with an infection, you know, hospital staff, a nurse, she comes with an infection. Okay, a healthcare worker, a rehabilitation worker, a dialysis doing technician. Okay, and remember one thing: if someone is having, you know, indwelling catheter, you know, we have a catheter inside, and if there is an infection, that will be a HAMRSA infection. Are we able to understand? So how will you detect an MRSA? Let us write a topic: how to detect MRSA. How to detect MRSA? How to detect an MRSA? You will do an antimicrobial susceptibility test, isn't it? You will see whether an antimicrobial can kill it or not. Antimicrobial susceptibility test. Okay. Other tests you have, you know, we call it a disk diffusion test. Disk diffusion test. Okay. Or you can do an oxacillin screen agar test. Okay. How will you treat an MRSA? Again, you can write in this topic. What is the treatment of an MRSA? Vancomycin. What other drugs can you give? You can give teicoplanin, you can give linezolid. Okay, these can be, you have quinopristine also from pharmacology, or dalvopristine, or you have tigacycline. What else can we think? Oritavancin we have, isn't it? We have daptomycin. You know, we give daptomycin for what? Daptomycin we give for endocarditis. Endocarditis. What else? If someone is having skin infections also, I can give daptomycin. Daptomycin. Or sometimes, you know, nasal carriers, there are also some nasal carriers of MRSA. For them, we give nasal ointment, that is mupirocin. Mupirocin 2%. Mupirocin 2% ointment. Okay, ointment is given for those who have nasal carriers of MRSA. Okay, how you will understand? Will you give a beta-lactam to a MRSA patient? No, never. We understood their pathology, how they can cause a disease. They are not, you know, PBP, this already changed, and beta-lactam is always towards the PBP, penicillin binding proteins. But the same PBP is not present there. It is PBP2A. So we are not able to destroy the bacteria. So we will directly give what? Fifth generation cephalosporins. Fifth generation cephs. We can give fifth generation cephs. Which fifth generation? Ceftobiprole. 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 What else? Ceftaroline. 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 Or what else? What else? Yeah, contribute. Ceftolozane. 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 You can give these drugs against the MRSA from the cephalosporin. Okay, but there is also VRSA. Now there is a VRSA resistance. VRSA. Okay, vancomycin resistant Staph aureus. Or you have vancomycin intermediate Staph aureus. Okay, this happens because if a person is taking high amounts of vancomycin, overuse of vancomycin, that leads to the resistance to vancomycin. So we have two types, that is VRSA and VISA. Okay, Visa and Versa. Visa and Versa. Okay, how will you treat Visa and Versa? How will you treat? Who is responsible, by the way, for these? Who is responsible for VRSA, VISA? It is VAN gene. VAN A gene. Okay, VAN A gene is responsible for this. It is actually happening through which mechanism of genetics? Horizontal conjugal transfer. You know what is happening? This Versa, you know, two bacteria, if I take, this is what? Enterococcus faecalis. This is one bacteria, Enterococcus faecalis. It is giving the gene to the Staph aureus. Which gene? This VAN A gene. That's why it is becoming resistant. Okay, it is acquiring this infection from Enterococcus faecalis, who when this Staph aureus. Okay, so this is actually a horizontal conjugal transfer. This is the process by which this is acquiring the Versa gene. Okay, So what about visa? Sir, who is giving visa? Visa is not given by anyone. It is actually due to Staph aureus is synthesizing more cell wall. Staph aureus is synthesizing more cell wall, making the cell wall more thicker. So increase in the thickness of cell wall is due to visa, but versa is because of the conjugal transfer from the Enterococcus faecalis. But how will you treat these two resistances? Directly linezolid. Linezolid, or you can give tilavancin. Tilavancin. Okay. You can't give vancomycin. Will you give vancomycin to these two strains? No, sir. Vancomycin can't give. Can't give vancomycin. Okay. Can't give vancomycin. So are we able to understand? So I hope you have enjoyed this Staph aureus. We have finished the Staph aureus infection. And if you want more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel Chambers. I will be uploading now. The next video will be about the second bacteria, that is Streptococcus, Enterococcus and Pneumococcus. Okay. So we'll be talking about it in the next video. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Bye bye.